the speed at which you enter the Earth's atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth's atmosphere at that speed would be like a brick wall, almost.
Yeah, right.
You could bounce off it. If you come in at too shallow an angle, you bounce off and go into orbit around the Sun. If you come in at too sharp an angle, you burn up. You have to come in at a very precise angle. And that angle is so small that they say that the window through which the spacecraft had to enter is 40 miles wide and 6 miles deep. That is the equivalent of you standing on top of the Empire State Building in America with a marble in your hand, dropping it over the edge, and me at the bottom with a beer mug catching it.
Yeah, okay, that's a nice one. It's a difficult
not
one.
once,
No.
you do it 7 times.
Oh wow, I think I wouldn't make that. You?
You could win $1 million if you throw 6 dice and come up 6.
Okay.
So there are so many anomalies on this.
Yeah.
Very few people even look at the re-entry. They think, well, if they've got there. No, getting there's the easy part.
Mm-hmm.
But they appear to have got back in one piece.
But then, just I'm a little bit naive blonde on this level, maybe. But how about these people in Skylab and those space stations? They have to come back as well. They are also out of our atmosphere, in an orbit around the atmosphere. How do they come back?
Same way.
But with less speed, I guess. The speed is less.
The speed is less. They're coming back from the space station. They re-enter the Earth's atmosphere at about 17,000 miles an hour.
Oh, okay.
So in terms of energy dissipation, it's quite a considerable amount less.
Exactly.
It's the square of the speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's dangerous as well, because they come in and because it's a glider.
Mm-hmm.
The space shuttle is a glider, it bounces off and it loses speed and it comes into the Earth's atmosphere and it lands, as an airplane does. That is much easier to achieve.
Exactly.
Because they can choose their re-entry point precisely, and they can steer the space shuttle can be manoeuvred. It has rockets on it. It can be positioned in place.
Sure.
The Apollo spacecraft has no rockets. It couldn't be steered. It was just a blunt-ended cone that bounces onto the atmosphere, and you hope to goodness it slows down in time.
Exactly.
There's one picture here which is an interesting fake. This is a provable fake. This picture here is of the Apollo 14 landing the Antares. Note the flag, note the ladder, note the little square at the bottom. Reverse it. Ladder, flag, square. And this is the picture that appeared at the Kennedy Space Center. Ladder, flag, square. This is of 2 astronauts on the lunar surface. Notice I've just said something impossible. You can't photograph 2 astronauts on the lunar surface because who took the picture?
Sure.
There were only ever 2 people on the lunar surface at one time. This is a composite photograph. And it's a photograph because you can tell with the crosshairs here and here. It's not a video still, which is this, it's the video still of that particular, it's the golf shot.
Yes.
Taken as Alan Shepard, his golf club. There's the golf ball. And you don't see a golf ball in flight normally. It's not going across your view, you can see it coming towards you. So this is a fake photograph which was displayed at the Kennedy Space Center until I drew NASA's attention to it through the websites which I was on at the time, and it was miraculously removed.
Okay.
Because it wasn't labelled as a montage, which is what it is.
Okay.
It was labelled as a representation of the event.
Okay.
But it wasn't shown to be a fake.
How many times after the first moon landing, according to NASA, have people been on that moon again? How many flights were there?
There were 6 allegedly successful landings and 1 unsuccessful landing. And 1 Apollo, starting at the beginning, Apollo 8 orbited the moon Christmas 1968. That was when we had the big thing about reading the book of Genesis, etc. That orbited the moon, they didn't attempt to land. Apollo 9 was Earth orbit only. It was practicing the separation of the craft. Apollo 10, again orbiting the moon, but going close enough so that all the parts of the mission could be tested in space. They didn't land.
They were all test flights.
They were test flights. Apollo 11 landed, Apollo 12 landed, Apollo 13 was the accident. Brilliant piece of script writing then. Apollo 14, 15, 16 and 17 allegedly landed.
Yeah.
So we have 6 landings,
Yeah.
and Apollo 8, Apollo 10, Apollo 13 did not land. So we have 9 flights to the moon.
Right.
27 astronauts in total, always 3 on the mission, but actually 2 people went twice, so there were 25 astronauts who allegedly orbited the moon.
Okay.
So it's a select band of people.
It is, it is. And, well, let's come to another point now, because if this whole thing has been a fake happening, and we go a little bit further than the political side of it, that they wanted to put America on the space map beside the Russians, or even past the Russians, could there be another scenario behind it? Because you've got this in the conspiracy world, you've got all these nice theories about bases on the moon, on the backside of the moon and on Mars. I don't know if you know the book of Jim Marrs, Casebook on Alternative 3. What do you think about that story, that the technology is already much further advanced? Even in the 60s it was already much further advanced than we know and than you, and they already got much more up there, and keep it secret because they've got another scenario. Right. What do you feel about that?
Okay. Are you familiar with the book Alternative 3?
Yes.
Jim Marrs' book, The Casebook on Alternative 3,
yes,
refers to the original book, Alternative 3.
Yes.
Do we know why it's called Alternative 3?
Well, there's been made a movie about it as well, and it's,
yes.
it's laid out in there that the first 2 alternatives were not good enough actually for letting the elite of the world survive under other circumstances.
Yeah, it's to do with global warming actually.
That's what it was. Yes.
Alternative 1, blow a hole in the upper atmosphere, let the heat out. Well, we know that has happened. And a nuclear weapon was exploded.
Exactly, yeah, sure.
Alternative 2, build underground cities. We know that's happened.
This also happened, yeah.
So when you get to Alternative 3, which is colonise Mars and the Moon, the logical explanation is, yes, it's happened. But there's no evidence for it.
No, of course not. It's secret, so how could we? And we can't check them out.
No, it's a catch-22. It's difficult to... Yeah, it sounds logical, doesn't it?
Yes.
There are bases on the moon, especially on the back side of the moon. The far side is the correct term. Some people refer to it as the dark side of the moon. You know, that's the record by Pink Floyd.
Exactly.
It's the far side of the moon.
Yes.
Which is in darkness half the time as well.
Yes.
Whether there are bases there is debatable. I haven't seen any evidence for it. I haven't seen photographs like the one we showed earlier of the track being left across the surface of the moon. There have been plenty of images of unexplained objects on the lunar surface. Now whether they are what people would like them to believe, evidence of extraterrestrial visitations, is another matter. Because one can make a strong case for saying that the moon is artificial. That it was deliberately placed in its location in order to provide the conditions that life can exist on Earth. What happens if you take the moon away? If the moon doesn't exist, what would happen?
We haven't got any tides
We
anymore.
haven't got any tides. That might affect human life in a very dramatic way.
Sure.
So if you want to create the environment in which human life can exist, then you put something like the moon in orbit to provide that
energetic
conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one could say that the moon is artificial and it's inhabited by the people who we perceive to drive the UFOs that occasionally get spotted, and they come in and out from the back side, or the far side of the moon.